Dallas's run defense now with Quinnen Williams is actually pretty good. Look, it's a 2-game sample or 3-game sample, whatever.
I'll take
but
it.
since he's been there, they were terrible defensively. And look at the rush, one of the worst teams in the league against the run. Now, again, small sample, but second best against the run. And only allowing 21, 22 points a game is pretty good. So I just think the Cowboys are playing much better, Nick, and they're going to go in there and win.
Just quickly to that graphic, this is something Coach Mangini said too, and we drew the line at the Quinnen Williams trade. But Mangini talks a lot about a defense takes a little bit to round into form. Well, we've seen it with a few teams. He's always saying that. So I know we're like, wow, that was magic. But maybe it's like a little Quinnen Williams, a little guys getting healthy, a little getting the scheme all contributes.
Yeah, I think that second part is as big as the first or the third. I think the Cowboys, they got a lot of guys back from injury. Overshawn has been really good. He's not the only guy they got back. They also brought in that linebacker from Cincinnati who couldn't play for Cincinnati, Logan Wilson. But he seems to be fitting in. Then of course, and Quinnen Williams is a legit difference maker. Like, one can object to the trade like I did and still do, but still recognize he's a difference maker. And Schefter reported 45 minutes ago, a little ominous about Amon-Ra tonight, saying they think it might be more realistic for next week, but he's, quote, one of the toughest guys anyone's ever met.
You have to put that in.
Right. And so
the agent made sure.
So
made documentation on toughest.
And so, but so they didn't close. To be clear, he didn't close the door on him playing, but he
you got to go.
Narrowed it.
If you have a 12% chance if you lose, you got to go.
You think he's got to play?
Well, 12%.
The thing is,
it's a vacation.
wide
receiver is really limited. It's an ankle.
Wide receiver with an ankle. If he can't get over the pain threshold, then he's just not useful. Like, it's not a lineman with an ankle, like especially so.
And it can
and so he might play, but it's, to me, more skeptical than a questionable designation normally would be. With that all said, I've got the Lions.
Oh.
And
wow, I thought you had the Cowboys. Earlier in the week?
I've been all week, and my rationale earlier in the week was I just don't think the Lions are going to go out this way, and I just don't think the Cowboys are going to have the single most impressive 3-game winning streak of any team in football this year. And it is right now the Cowboys are playing better than the Lions. I understand that. I also understand, and this is going to sound cliche, and I don't mean it to, this is a week-to-week league. This game is in Detroit, and this is a game the Lions absolutely unequivocally know they have to have. And we can say, well, the Cowboys do too. But the Cowboys have been playing that game week. They had to have the Eagles game. They had to have the Chiefs game. They have to have this game. And so at some point, you can't tap into that as well as you can in other times. And I agree with you, Brew. The Lions are not as good as the Lions the last couple years. I still feel like the 2025 Detroit Lions at home in a game they've got to have should be able to beat the 2025 Dallas Cowboys. And this is coming from someone that just watched the Cowboys beat their team and play great. And I think George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb are a great receiver combo, and this year they've been the best receiver duo in football. Even by that standard, I think they're running a little hot.
Okay. Dallas Cowboys. I know Cowboys fans are going to love this. Love this. I think I'm going to live stream this game. I think. So be on the lookout. I'm going to try to get everything done that I can so I can live stream this game, because this game I'm pumped for. Cowboys fans, you should feel really lucky that Nick is picking against you. Statistically speaking, right now, you have better odds to win this game. Detroit Lions, I'm so sorry that he's picking you. That means statistically you have worse odds to win this game. This is going to be more of a Cowboys-centric video. I just made a herd Lions video. But I want to look at this both ways. I don't want to just use made-up analysis, which Nick himself has even admitted. It's like, well, this is kind of fuzzy analysis, just being like, well, I don't expect them to be able to beat these 3 teams in a row and this and that, and it's just like, that's not actually like anything real. Neither is, I just don't believe that they're just going to have the best 3-game win streak in football. Like, first off, that's because you think the Chiefs are great, and they're clearly not right now, okay? Like, lots of teams have beat the Chiefs. In fact, the Chiefs have lost 6 times, okay? The Eagles are not playing well right now. No one believes that they're playing well right now. So even beating the Eagles, it was an impressive win in a vacuum, but like, the Eagles are just not playing great football right now by any stretch of the imagination. So it's like, you can't even necessarily say with your chest out that that's a big win. And even now going up against the Detroit Lions, who are also struggling and are not in the playoffs right now, beating them is also not the most impressive thing. If this was last year, absolutely. Absolutely. And then I could understand some of that logic. But the reality is that these teams are not who these teams have been. That's just the reality of the situation. And again, make no mistake about it, that's pro Dallas Cowboys. You're playing better football than those teams. And so if you're playing better football than those teams, it's like kind of becomes a lot less impressive from my viewpoint. It's impressive when you beat a team that is also playing great or is technically playing better football than you, and you beat them. It's like, okay, that's impressive now. That's impressive. But if like the Chiefs are not making the playoffs this year and they're just not quite the Chiefs, beating the Chiefs at home on Thanksgiving, short rest, it's not that impressive. You just beat a team that's not in the playoffs. Like, I don't care that it has Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the Kansas City Chiefs written all over it. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The Eagles make the playoffs but get smoked in the first round, or they don't even make the playoffs. It's like, okay, beating the Eagles is not that impressive. They're not that good this year. They have serious issues, right? The Detroit Lions don't make the playoffs this year, where if the Cowboys beat them, then the chances of making the playoffs really plummets. It's like, okay, like you potentially then just beat 3 non-playoff teams. That's not now this amazing win streak necessarily. So we're viewing things through too narrow of a lens. Now, again, make no mistake about it, that's me praising and elevating the Dallas Cowboys. But I will say this, I will play devil's advocate a little bit because we're talking about the defense. And although I'm the one that said going into this season that I think Eberflus was a great hire and that Eberflus is a great defensive coach. Now, that take originally looked awful because of how the season was unfolded. But again, I said that before the move of Micah, etc., etc. Now it took them a minute or two to kind of get healthy, make some moves. Now this defense looks significantly better. But I'm not about to go do a victory lap just yet because their defense has looked better, on this 3-game sample size. The Raiders, especially the run game, awful. And the Eagles, we know their offense is so insanely consistent and they can't run the ball. They absolutely cannot run the ball. So when you use a 3-game sample with 2 struggling offenses, that's a problem. Now, even using the Chiefs is not even a great sample size because, listen, the Chiefs actually played offensively great against the Cowboys, but I wouldn't even use that as a sample size because we could say, well, against the Eagles and the Raiders, that defense looked great. Those teams offensively haven't been so great, can't really take away much of that. And then on the flip side, I'm not going to now just say, well, look, how the Chiefs played against you is the real representation of who you are because the Chiefs are insanely well coached with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. So, like, they will always be in a position to do damage in any given moment. And so when you're going up a little bit more of a neutral aspect of like a great team, great players, great coach, etc., but like not the Mahomes and Andy Reid, it's like, what do you look like? Now, the problem is the Detroit Lions used to kind of be a good barometer for that, but like their offense is also really tricky right now. And they're dealing with O-line issues and play calling issues. 1 minute, Dan Campbell's calling the plays. Next minute, their offensive coordinator's calling the plays. Amon-Ra St. Brown's in the lineup? Nope, no, he's not in the lineup. Our players unretired? Nope, never mind, he's still retired. Like, they're going with their issues right now as well. So, it's a great stretch for the Cowboys of who they need to go up against and what they need to accomplish. Like, it's I'm not going to say it's on a silver platter for them, but it's certainly served up for them. It's not a layup, but it's not a logo 3 either. And so like this is where you are going to look at the Cowboys and be like, can you seize this? Can you seize this opportunity? Can you take advantage? You've already shown that you've taken advantage of teams that are struggling or that are imperfect right now. And it's like, can you continue to do that? And then from the Lions' perspective, they're trying to argue, no. Like, that's not the case right now. It's just any given Sunday. It's a week-to-week league, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I'm fascinated to see, right here, honestly. It's their season is so tough to evaluate, the Dallas Cowboys, because they lost to the Cardinals, right? They got smoked by the Broncos, but we'll say, well, you know what? They weren't fully healthy yet. Their defense wasn't quite right. And they made some moves, they got healthy, and now this is completely changed. And it's like, but then you went up against the Raiders, right? Then we went up against the Eagles. It's like, yeah, we shut out the Eagles in the second half. And it's like, lots of teams have done that. Lots of teams have done that. Like, that's not actually new for the Philadelphia Eagles. They can't run the ball, and they go through incredible stretches of being unable to do anything, right? The Chicago Bears seemingly embarrassed them on Friday. And then again, the Kansas City Chiefs are not the Kansas City Chiefs. And so it's just like you have this 3-game stretch, and normally if the Detroit Lions were back to who they were, then you would be able to be like, all right, this is a game now. We're going to find out who are the Dallas Cowboys. And I don't feel that way right now. I really don't. The Detroit Lions lose. If the Detroit Lions lose, and if they lose convincingly, it still will say more to me about who the Detroit Lions are not than who the Dallas Cowboys are. But the reality is, because I always look at these barometer games of, like, again, I can only keep using last year as a reference point because that's where things were more solidified. It's how do you play against the Eagles? How do you play against the Chiefs? How do you play against the Bills, the Ravens, the Rams? And it's just like, we don't have that right now. And that's what makes this completely wide open. And the Cowboys right now, they have no post-bye. They have no actual barometer games. Right now, it's like, I don't want to see them play against the Packers again, but even then, maybe, I don't know. I'd want to see them go up against the Rams, the Patriots, weirdly enough. Like it's just, but that's obviously not on the schedule. And now you're going up against the Minnesota Vikings. I don't even know who the quarterback is going to be for the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know if they even know. The Chargers, Justin Herbert just got surgery on his hand. That's a mess. The Washington Commanders, is Jane Daniels going to play? It's on Netflix, Christmas. I don't know what the story is there. And the New York Giants, So it's just like, this is the next closest thing we have to a barometer game. And quite frankly, I'm not sure it's really that, because the Detroit Lions are literally not even in the playoffs right now. They're literally not in the playoffs. And maybe it's just like, hey, they lost twice to the Packers. The Packers are just, a little bit more dialed in, a little bit more connected in a way that the Lions just can't get after. And, they lost to the Chiefs, who were, kind of up and coming in that moment, kind of also in this, it's time to be aggressive and start winning these games. And maybe that just kind of caught up to the Lions a bit. And maybe the Lions are still the Lions, and they're going to prove that against the Dallas Cowboys in a weirdly enough way. I'm trying to figure out, considering how this game potentially could unfold. It's like, if the Lions rolled the Cowboys, I'm trying to think, what would that tell me? If the Lions win a close game to the Cowboys, what would that tell me? If the Cowboys roll the Lions, what would that tell me? If the Cowboys win a close game, what would that tell me? And it's just like, I'm struggling to figure that out right now, because I fundamentally do not know who the Detroit Lions are right now. I feel as though I have a pretty good grasp of who the Cowboys are right now. Pretty much what I thought they were going to be going into this season. It just took a little bit of classic 2 or classic 3, whatever the heck Nick's category is, where it ended up coming true just a little bit later. Although I think this offense is even better than even I thought it was going to be, although I was very firm that it wasn't going to be this mess like Nick and Brew and Colin were all trying to emphasize. And, so yeah, and I'm not ready to crown this defense either, even though, again, going into the season, I said this defense isn't going to be trash, and I praised the Eberflus hire because I think Eberflus is a good, even dare I say, a great defensive coach. But I'm patient. I'm not just going to use this 3-game sample size with the Raiders and the Eagles, whose offenses are, not flying, not necessarily flying high, especially their run games. I'm not going to use that to be like, I told you guys, because again, I could be doing the victory lap. I told you guys. I could bring up a clip from, July or something where I said, I think this defense is going to be good. Like, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to just do that just for the sake of doing it. I want it to be accurate. And unfortunately, I wish the Detroit Lions were full full power right now, and we felt comfortable and confident with the coaching, because then that would be a great matchup defensively to be like, all right, let's see what the Cowboys have in store now. Like, that would be like, okay, we're gonna learn now. We're gonna see how much did this defense improve right now. And I just don't think that no matter what happens in this game in that regard, it'll be it'll give us that answer. But like I'm trying to emphasize, this season it actually doesn't matter, because if you were to face the Packers in the playoffs, the Lions in the playoffs, the Eagles in the playoffs, the Bears in the playoffs, like, yeah, you got beat, very convincingly by the Bears, but that was week 3, right? You very much feel like you're a different team. I assume CeeDee Lamb didn't even play in that game, because I don't think he played in the Packers. I forget now, honestly. But that was still week 3, the third game of the season. The defense wasn't the defense. The offense wasn't the offense. So it's just like I wouldn't even use that game as a strong reference point. It's like if the Cowboys played the Bears in the playoffs, everyone's going to use that as a reference point, and I'll be the first one to say, throw that game out the window. I could care less about that game. That game told me nothing about what it's going to look like in the first round, wild card round or something, right? Like it would tell me nothing. So the Cowboys are in a fascinating situation right now. And I just did a video where Greg Cosell said that the Buffalo Bills are the most fascinating team from a film perspective. And I think right now the Cowboys, just from like a narrative trying to figure things out, are the most fascinating team right now, because of how their season specifically has unfolded, the moves they've made, and the teams that they've played, and the big names that those teams carry, the Chiefs, the Eagles, but the quality of play that we're seeing from all those teams. And now the Lions, it's the Lions. And it's like, well, it hasn't been the Lions. It hasn't been the Eagles. It hasn't been the Chiefs. And I'd argue still that the Chiefs are still the harder team to beat. But at the same time, as Nick keeps highlighting, that defense has been atrocious, especially on third downs. And so it's just tricky to make sense of, which is okay. Everybody wants definitive answers right now. And I've been very firm throughout the course of this season of just like, they're not always there, man. I feel like that's the theme of this season right now, is like the answers. This has been a wild season, and the answers are just not always immediately there. And just because you win, just because you lose, just because you dominate, just because you get smoked, doesn't automatically give you the answer. Just because you beat the Chiefs doesn't prove that you're now a top team. Just because you beat the Eagles doesn't prove that you're not top. Just because you lose to the Eagles doesn't mean that you're not a great team, or lose to the Lions doesn't mean that you're not a great team. It's just tricky. It's genuinely tricky right now to try to make sense of what you're seeing, which is why I then really, this is how I feel most of the time, but like you really zoom into what is the quality of play. The way that should always be the foundation, but I still think it makes sense to kind of consider other factors. But I feel as though this season, those other factors should be minimized even more. And it's like, don't focus on the name of the Chiefs or the you're on the road or you're at home. It's just like, what is the quality of play that I'm seeing right now? And you have to factor in the quality of the other team immensely. If the Cowboys smoke the Lions and the Lions just clearly do not look right, I know the Cowboys fans are going to want to celebrate and they're going to be like, that's right, we dominated the Lions, this, that. And it's just like, but the Lions haven't played good. The Lions do not look good, right? Like, that's what you have to understand. Like it was a similar take with the Bears beating the Eagles. It's like, yeah, you beat the Eagles and that's great, and then you should feel great, and there was a coaching masterclass and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's like the Eagles are in shambles right now. Like, they are struggling big time. You did not get a great punch from the Philadelphia Eagles, and you have to acknowledge that and recognize that. But what makes the season so unique is that, like, you're not always getting a great punch from majority of the teams right now, so it doesn't matter as much as it maybe did last time. I think strength of schedule is something that I always think about, and the quality of the teams and who you're beating and how you're playing. That has always mattered a ton to me. It's never just been the record. It's never just been, a win is a win and a loss is a loss. But this year especially, I can't tell if it actually technically matters more or significantly less, because there's no teams that you are just really much like, phew. Again, that's the Bills. That's the Ravens. That's the Chiefs. That's the Eagles. That's the 49ers. There is no team like that currently. And any of the teams that we could say are that, you're like, will they be that way in the playoffs? Like you don't have that depth of confidence right now. So I just feel as though that's also going to continue to be the big foundation of my takes over these next few weeks, unless there's more clarity here, which is why I wish this game could offer more clarity. But for me, at least right now, it's not. Unless I see the way how the game unfolds and it changes. Like everything is always subject to change. So I don't know. Messy takes. Messy games get messy takes. Messy seasons get messy videos. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Dallas Cowboys? Do you believe they're going to win? Do you think they're going to lose? What do you think a win would mean for the Cowboys? Obviously not from like a standing standpoint and ability to get into the playoffs. Like that's all given. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. Please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.